Hello, everyone, and welcome. Whether you're here with a notebook in hand, tuning in virtually, or simply soaking in the energy of the space, thank you for joining us. Today's Fireside Chat is all about leading with purpose and pause, empowering teams, balancing enthusiasm, and fostering collaboration. Now, that's a lot of ground to cover, but it's exactly what this conversation is about, the real human heart of leadership. The parts that don't always show up on paper, the encouragement, the passion, the ability to hold space for others, even when the room is tense or uncertain. We're going to talk about what it means to lead with presence and poise, and how to harness our natural enthusiasm while making space quiet wisdom, and how to truly empower others to rise alongside us. And I am thrilled to be joining with some incredible leaders today. Each of them brings a unique flavor of leadership, from hands-on service to strategic development, from deep listening to contagious motivation. Let's give a warm welcome to Linda Allen, Lena Scullard, and Lori McDowell. Together, they embody what it means to lead with both purpose and pause. So, without further ado, I'd like to start with Lena and have Lena introduce herself.
Good morning, Kim. Hi, everyone. I am a small town girl from Minnesota who has an obsession with psychology. I have a background in theater and corporate training. And I feel like the topic today I'm excited about because I really strive for balance in everything that I do in my life. I really think balance and moderation is a key to success. So thanks, Kim.
All right, awesome. All right, Linda.
Well, I am so excited to be here. This topic is super important to me. And um, so I'm from Florida. I've lived here most of my life. And I'm in my fifth decade of doing work in the education and social service arena. So this topic shows up for me in a really different way because my life is all about empowerment. For the people who don't believe that they have that. And for the people that we as a society are constantly bombarding with shoulds. So this was a really great topic for me to explore for myself. I can't wait to share.
All right, well, thank you, Linda. All right, Lori.
Yeah, hi everyone. I am Lori McDowell, and I actually come from a 30-plus year career in chemical engineering, where I worked in sales and marketing, research and development, training, a number of different areas. And then recently, in the last couple of years, I left chemical engineering and I started working as a coach and a trainer and a speaker. And I truly feel like empowerment is so important, and that we have so much inside of us that we don't access. So I love this topic. I love helping people realize that, they have so much more power and that they're limiting themselves. And really, when you take care of yourself and you realize what you can do, you can change the world.
I love that. All right, awesome. And I'm Kim Groshek. I'm actually known as the Pause Lady. I've been speaking on stages all over the country about pausing. All right, so kick it off today, I'm going to ask Lena. She's a natural cheerleader and team builder. How do you create an environment where others feel empowered and motivated to contribute to their best?
Kim, I love that question. And I think it's really easy to overlook some really important aspects of that, especially when it comes to speaking to leaders about building those high performing and motivated teams. And the biggest thing that I see that gets overlooked, I really like to talk about Maslow's hierarchy in terms of human motivation. And I think one of the biggest things we overlook in our organizations when it comes to leading teams is that level of psychological safety. We as leaders, we can bring all the enthusiasm and positive energy and let's go get them attitude in the world. But if we haven't created an environment where people feel like they can make mistakes without being shamed, that they can bring ideas forward and that those ideas will be embraced. If we don't create that environment, then all of the cheerleading in the world will not help people step up and want to contribute more.
I love that. That's one of the things that I really live in is agreements and communicating to people. And also the other pillar I always talk about is integrity. And some people call me the integrity lady because I'm always looking at my integrity and other people's integrity. And I think one of the things that could be missing in our workplace a lot of times is that we're always busy and trying to get that bottom line. And we don't have enough time to communicate and actually shift when our integrity does shift because the mistakes happen, right? Because we're only human and we do make mistakes. And then we're afraid to say that we made a mistake because, our performance is on the line, whatever. Just crazy stuff. So Lori, what does encouragement look like in your leadership day to day?
Right. For me, I think really encouragement has a lot to do with encouraging people that they can be themselves, that you're not trying to create them in a mold or change them into. Often people feel like, oh, if I want to succeed, I have to become this or I have to become that. And true leadership and true encouragement to help a team perform is to allow everyone to be themselves and to be true to themselves and to then take advantage of their genius. We all have our own genius, and when we let that shine, the teams can perform so much better together. So allowing everyone, encouraging everyone to truly be yourself and find out what your superpower is, and put that into the team is really important.
I love that. And there's sometimes too when people really don't know what their superpower is, or, they're just like, I'm just doing whatever I have to do, right? Sometimes it's good to take a little pause and figure that out. Maybe journal about who you are and what you actually can do best. So Linda, what do
Yeah.
you think? What are your thoughts?
So I'm glad you asked it that way, because when I started answering these questions for myself, I thought everyone has a different view of what leadership is. And then when I thought about it for myself, I thought it's changed from decade to decade. So that's something that I realized. So when I realized how I show up with excitement, which is inviting them to be as excited about that period of time, whether it's me tutoring a student or having a coffee with someone or being in a breakout room or in a chat like this. I mean, it's always about like showing up as authentically as you can in that moment for yourself, right? And then I realized, and the biggest thing is showing up with such non-judgment, because
big.
that's part of the reason that they feel uncomfortable in talking. And so I've always known that I've been this like magnet. I can open up kids and parents and I don't know, my friends too, right? I can just like open up people just because I really have that, I'm exuding that energy of just total curiosity and caring and support for whatever they have to say. And that
I
has
love
made all
that.
the difference. And I think there's one other part that I was realizing. I woke up with this morning. I have such a deep desire to share everything I know. I don't need to keep it. The way it grows is to give it away.
Yeah, that's big. Yeah, you don't have to hold it tight to your chest. You can share, right? That's okay, because sharing actually will make it grow, blossom into beautiful, much more than what you'd expect. So let's kind of shift a little. Lori, you bring undeniable energy and passion to your leadership. How do you balance that enthusiasm with intentional listening, especially when leading diverse teams?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kim. And I think you talked about being the pausing, and that really is, as a leader, you need to focus on pausing and on taking your enthusiasm and your amazing ideas and putting those aside for a minute, and really just pausing and being open to, put your thoughts aside and being open to everything else. Then you can come back to your ideas, but having, you got to get them out of your head, I think, and that pause, that breathe, that really focusing on what everyone is saying, and allowing them to be open and to share that is really important. for me, I mean, I use meditation to help me get that way. Because if I could pause when I'm by myself sitting there, then it's much easier to pause when I'm listening to other ideas and diverse ideas. But really putting yourself aside and focusing on the other person and pausing, taking that, time to just listen is really important. And being
Yeah, I mean,
open to
I,
anything.
I love that, and the intention to take to pause, that,
Mhm.
that actually takes focus.
Yes.
All right. So, Linda, how do you make sure every voice is heard, even when your own energy wants to push things fast forward?
I'm so glad I got asked that question because I thought about this. This is a skill I have really needed to learn because I'm such a teacher and I have a lot of energy. And I really had to learn how to intuitively get where that person was at and to really notice in a very short amount of time how to read the signals of what they're getting and what I need to shift in order for them to get the best for me. So that's been an ongoing learning process. Because sometimes I'm just so excited about what I'm sharing that I just turn off reading their responses.
Yeah.
It happens.
All right, Lena, I'm going to shift to de-escalation. You've worked closely with emotionally deregulated individuals. That's a tongue twister.
Mhm.
What techniques have you found most effective in helping people regain control and feel genuinely supported, especially in high stress environments?
Yes. Tips and techniques that I like to share with people. I think to go back to what we've been talking about with that pause, the first thing I think we have to do when we're learning to expand our emotional intelligence is start really paying attention and tuning in to our triggers and those little things that happen through the day that make us go right, and there's so many little things that cascade at us throughout the day that can pile on. And I find that most often that deregulation happens when little things pile on and we're not taking the time to really pay attention and respond and process them. So first, start to recognize your triggers. And I always say you need to start in the small moments. Nobody goes out and runs a marathon the day they decide they want to run a marathon. We have to train up to it. So it's those little moments when you're by yourself that you recognize yourself maybe getting irritated, maybe feeling offended, whatever that is. And then asking yourself, wow, that's an interesting feeling to have to that circumstance. Why am I feeling that way? What has happened in my past that's causing me to feel that way? Is it the only way that I could choose to feel? How do other people handle this? Right? And the biggest thing I think that I help people in that pause is to ask yourself, what is the long-term outcome that I want from this? Is it to feel peace? Is it to repair a relationship? Sometimes the outcome we want in the moment is to get even, right? To feel good, to let it all out. But those don't usually help us in the long term. So, really, rather than focusing on what my subconscious is telling me I want right now versus what's that long term outcome that I want. And usually it's just to kind of feel good about how I handled it. And when we can do that and kind of detach from the emotion, we can make better decisions. So recognizing the emotion, naming it, challenging it, and then really focusing forward.
I love that. Focusing forward. I love it. So now let's talk about hands-on leadership. Lori, you're not afraid to get into the trenches, especially with your background that you've had. How do you balance leading with being part of the team?
Oh, that's another great question. Yeah, I think what's important is, as a leader, it is important to get into the trenches because it's hard to ask someone else to do something if you're not willing to do it yourself. So I think showing that you are willing to do the hard stuff as well is important. and then balancing that with empowerment, with allowing people to have that decision authority to kind of do things their way, and I think by being clear on what the goals are, what the desired outcome is, and then allowing the team to figure out a way to do it that that makes sense for them, and supporting that too, because having trying to force everyone to be just like me doesn't work, and it's not necessarily the best thing, because I may not be the best person for every role. So showing that, I think there's a clear balance of showing that you're willing to do the hard work too. You're willing to get into the trenches and do what needs to be done. If you have a deadline, you're willing to be there till midnight as well, and not just have the team there, but allowing the team and empowering them to really take their role and make it their own, and do it to their fulfillment. Because when you give people that power to really own it, I think you get the best performance out of everyone.
Yeah, and the sprints, that's really how I work. Everyone starts out on the same running ground and we sprint together. But what it is really important is actually clarifying roles and what's expected in handoffs, in my world anyway. And usually I will be doing things. I will be doing things and then handing off, or saying this is done, or that person's doing that, and then their handoff is back to me. And the key is communicating in that space. Not everyone runs in sprints, but it sure is very successful, because it is sprinting. You're actually moving forward fast, and you get a lot done within an 8-hour day. It's amazing. So for everyone, Linda, what lessons can executive leaders learn from boots on the ground service?
That one I think is, I think it's a little bit different for me, because again, I've worked in social service organizations, nonprofit organizations, even in businesses that are providing services for families. And my specialty is working with learning different kids, which is a big topic these days, as we're getting all this misinformation about who is actually learning different and what does that really mean. And how education is up in as a teacher, this is like breaking my heart. I was one of the first special education teachers in the country. That's how long I've been doing this. So I've been watching this evolve. So again, as I opened with, this is a whole population that is good on. You should do this. You should be like this. You should. So in doing my leadership with them, it really ends up being that I just have to get them so darn excited about what I'm offering them, that they go know, it's just like our marketing, they know, love, and trust me. And that's when they start to realize that things are possible that they never thought were possible before.
Yeah.
And that,
Yeah.
right, and that they don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
And that really helps it. The difficulty I've had with my leadership over that time is I'm like the cheerleader that comes in at the beginning and gets them so darn excited about this, leaves them with the information, and then they have to go do it themselves. So my leadership takes place in that part. And then the best I can do is encouragement after that.
I love that. Yeah,
So, and that's part of my empowerment thing, you know?
yeah, so I was gonna say, I invite people to my events, my masterminds that I have, my 3.5-hour masterminds. And out of that, for free, because usually it costs a little money to come to my event, right? They'll come complimentary, and then afterwards they reach out to me and say, Kim, I want to get involved in this. This is amazing. How can I help you? So, sometimes it's just like you said, the know, like, and trust. They don't really know what I'm doing. They see me, but getting to know me by coming into my world helps them trust me and want to be a part of it. So I love that. All right, so to wrap it up, Lena, we're going to start with you. Many of you have been exploring the power of the pause and intentional silence in leadership. What's one insight you've gained from that journey, and how do you see it reshaping the way you lead moving forward?
The piece that you just said there that jumps out at me is that quietness piece. And one of my favorite kind of recent learnings to come out actually comes from Liz Wiseman, wrote a book called Multipliers, and I certified to train that program. And it's a leadership training program. But one of the things that I learned is the difference between when to play big and when to play small. And that is oftentimes as leaders, our instinct is to lead, meaning we kind of drive, right? We drive the conversation, we ask the questions. If nobody has an answer, we give the answer. And the difference between playing big and playing small is really recognizing as a leader, when do I need to shut up? When do I need to just be quiet and let my team talk things out and let my team take the lead on reaching the outcome? That whole concept is really, really powerful for me because I'm a talker and I'm that kind of leader that wants to like get out in front and say, let's go. So yeah, finding those opportunities to really just play small and let others on the team play big, I think is really valuable.
I love that. Play small. Love it. All right, Linda, what is one insight you've gained from that journey of practicing the pause and the intentional silence?
I'm going to jump on Lena's right there. I kind of saw it as a little bit different, but the same, because this is something I can't learn soon enough. I am undertaking the biggest, my legacy, my passion project. It's called Empowered Parents, Creating the Best Education Experience for Their Learning Different Child. And I want to take it around the world because I know when we change people's mindset about learning different people, and everyone loves somebody who's learning different. When we do that, the way we perceive, care for, accept, and educate those people will transformationally change and change the world. So I am realizing that I must pay attention to who I am being asked to become as a leader.
Yeah.
And it takes into account all that we talked about. So I'm going to be in my 70th year, or I am in my 70th year, right? Working in that. And this is an incredible lesson to learn at this point. It's very, I want to say, humbling.
Mm.
So it meant, we've been given all these gifts and all this wisdom and all this ability. And now this calling is moving us forward in a way that we never thought of before. So everything that we've talked about is super important. That's what I see. I'm
Love
so
that.
glad to be part of this today.
All right, Lori, what have you gained intentional and for pausing?
Yeah, one of the things that I think is really important in pausing and being intentional there is the concept of failing forward and making it clear to everyone that it's okay to fail as long as you learn. And in that pause and in that silence and listening, you basically let the team grow because they do know that it's okay to fail because you're going to learn from it, and that's where growth occurs. And so what I've learned, as a leader, is being willing to stop and let the team figure things out. And if they make a mistake, you can guide them, but you can also just be present and be there for them and let them figure it out. And that really empowers the team and helps everyone grow, including you, because sometimes when you feel like you know the answer, it is hard to not jump in and do it. But it's so much more valuable when you let them figure it out and learn from it, because then it becomes part of your team and part of them as well. So, and then you grow because you've mastered that pausing and allowing other people to grow. So the idea of, pausing and allowing people to fail forward and to learn from that will end up, making the ceiling so much higher.
I love that. All right. Well, thank you all for sharing your stories, your strategies, and your heart. Leadership's not about having all the answers, but about cultivating space where others can rise, be heard, and shine. Let's carry this conversation forward in how we show up, how we lead, and how we listen. Thank you again for our brilliant speakers, and thank you for being part of this fireside chat. Until next time.